But I grew up in public morality in Northern Virginia, a land of money and opportunity and high ideals. I talked about this last time I was here, but basically public morality is just like Langston Hughes quotes, which he's a great guy. And this one poster that says, aim for the moon, if you miss, you'll land among the stars. And it's a good poster, you know, but it was really interesting. I was thinking about it on the last tour I did, and it's really funny because there's no oxygen on the moon, and there's also no oxygen, you can't even be on a star, like it's just a flaming ball of gas, you know? So either way, you'll die if you go there. So it's just this weird poster that says, hey man, I don't know, kill yourself. And it's like really horrible, you know, but we all put it up there. It's like, oh yeah, the book fair had this, and the book fair is good for kids. And the funny thing though is I was not intelligent enough to understand that when I was a child. I was just like, yeah, poster! And I believed it, and Ash Ketchum and all the things I was exposed to. And I went to college and I was like, hi, my name's Chris. I thought I wanted to work at a museum, but turns out they're terrible. I want to change the world. That's all I have for my life plan. And they're like, oh man, did you believe all that shit we said when you were a kid? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, well, it's a lie. And I was like, oh. Dang it. It's really silly, but I spent about 2 years sort of disenfranchised and angry because it turned out all the people who told me to be a good person didn't really believe it that much if it cost them anything. And I was ready to pay the price, you know? And I had this crazy spiritual experience when I was 18, and God was like, be a poet. And I was like, okay. And so I didn't even know what poets did, but I was like, I'm going to be a poet. And I started being a poet. And when I was 20, I performed for the first time at this little coffee shop in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And from like ages 20 to like 22, it was this really cool thing that I did where everyone's like, wow, you're so passionate, it's so cool that you follow your dreams and you want to help people, like what a great thing you're doing. And I was like, oh man, I'm just the best. And then from like 23 to 25, it was like, I don't know if this is really going to work out in the long term, you know, but I mean, hey, at least you travel, that's cool. And I was like, yeah, okay, and this is sounding less positive. And then when I was 26 and 27, the traveling thing stopped being cute too, and then it was just sort of like, I don't know, man, like, maybe you should do something else. And I don't feel sad about the person I am or what I'm doing, but the thing I learned is like, we all want to care for each other a lot, but we don't really do a very good job of it. And when it really comes down to it, we say a lot of things that we call love, but what they are is fear, because we want the best for people, right? And you know, chasing your dreams, doing something you're passionate about, following Jesus are all really like scary, hard things, and so it's against our flesh. We're just like, I don't know, man, maybe you should just get a job and get insurance because I want you to be safe. But we call that love, but really it's just fear. And these two poems are about, kind of sticking it out when you don't feel good enough, or we can't validate what you're doing. I'm an artist, which means that even if I became super famous and made millions of dollars, nothing I do will ever do any tangible good. You know, nobody's building a house with my poems. Like it's all sort of this amorphous spiritual thing. And even if people find value in it, there's nothing to prove. I can never prove my life. But I hope these poems encourage you. Being encouraging and positive kind of died in like the late 2000s, you know, with Warped Tour and stuff. It's just not a very exciting thing to do anymore. But the thing that hooks you in the bottom of your soul, I think God's real, and I think those things are there for a reason. And I think they are really hard, and I think they're really scary. And I think a lot of times you got to do it when no one really cares about you, because we need those things, and you know, people's validation is never going to sustain you. I don't know, this is encouragement to keep going if you're doing something like that. And if you haven't found it, just keep looking. We really need that. We don't really need any more safe people. We just need a lot more open, vulnerable people. That's what I'm trying to be. These two poems are about that. Thanks so much for choosing to listen to me. If you didn't know, you were in a high risk of a car accident today, both because of the weather and existing with other human beings. You could have accessed all of this on the internet, either from us or from people who are similar to us, but perhaps much better. So you made this wild choice to just come to this room full of potential strangers who might not think the things that you think or want to do the same things you want to do. It's always very scary to be with people you don't know, but you took a big risk being here, and I really appreciate it. That's a special thing to do. The reason we get close, I hope, is this guy named Donald Trump, and I had a lot of loud opinions about him. And my friend Christian Welch was like, "Hey man, you ever think that just because he says people can't be people, he's not a person?" And I was like, "Oh, damn, conviction's awful." And it turns out I hated him because he's just some guy on TV. But when you're close to people, you see they're just like you. They're made in the same image as you. They can hurt the same way. They want the same things. So if you ever hate somebody, just get real close to them. Don't change that. And this poem's called Parable of Water. It features a map of Russia. Right here, you can clearly see it. Yeah, we don't have a lot of money. If you do give us money, we will not buy a map. Just use your mind. Thanks a lot for choosing to listen to me. Indecisive as usual, standing before the drink cases in 7-Eleven, the glass doors all foggy as I open and close them, looking like my philosophy professor's glasses when he breathes. To clean the lenses, I'm thinking of Lake Baikal and its Siberian nothingness, ethnocentric and yeah, I know, just sitting there thousands of miles away, tucked between Irkutsk, Ulan-Ude, and Severodvinsk, the biggest freshwater lake on Earth, 20% of our unfrozen surface water, roughly 1,700 species, 2/3 of which only live there, in Siberia, nowhere enough to make Iowa feel like Manhattan and Tokyo rolled together and done up with Calcutta's makeup when it stands before the mirror every lonely Friday night, but Lake Baikal won't ever meet Iowa, or Manhattan, or even Tokyo won't ever pass out samples of its locally famous armor at a Tokyo fish market, examining the obnoxious collection of waters lined up in its overpriced rows like the lines of two desperate bottle blondes outside clubs in DC. I think of Lake Baikal's sister, Lake Hovsgol, hiding away in Mongolia, even more remote, an Amish hermit moved to Missoula, protecting its endangered endemic Hovsgol grayling from the world, like the desperate father who locks up his bottle blondes in baggy sweaters and trench coats and tells them the club has AIDS, syphilis, gonorrhea, and Republicans or Democrats or independents or atheists, whichever he thinks she'll be the most afraid of. I probably the only person in the whole world you'll ever hear even mention a Hovsgol grayling, which are running out of places to breed, you know, but nobody talks about them, so it's like they don't really exist. Lake Vostok is buried beneath 13,000 feet of ice. That's 13 Eiffel Towers or one trip down the bar to talk with the woman bent on proving she's too good for you. Vostok's water is so pure, no one's even seen it, let alone done the backstroke or bathed in it or sipped it with a little lemon wedge, still perplexed, trying to decipher the word artesian and its strange imported fonts on the backs of bottles so effortful to be hip. My dad has never even more than glanced at them, and my dad is like a lot of people, I think even a Lake Malawi, which you may have heard of, but I certainly never had until I accidentally found it on Wikipedia, having stumbled down the rabbit hole of blue text links while reading about Kathmandu and Port-au-Prince. The lake has the most species of fish in any freshwater lake on Earth, over 1,000 cichlids alone, but it's literally farther away from this Metro DC gas station, crammed with its fluorescent white lights between a foreclosed grocery store and a nail salon, like a lost engagement ring under a secondhand sofa, than Paris, Sao Paulo, the fabled shores of Tripoli, the halls of Montezuma, or Timbuktu. Yes, even farther than Timbuktu, but I have never been to any of those places, or these lakes, or the countries these water brands pretend to taste like, so I buy Gatorade, the red kind, because they're out of yellow, because it doesn't waste its breath trying to convince me it's been to Maine or Wisconsin or Scandinavia, or that the Pacific Northwest water is any more refreshing or life-giving than Canada's or Fiji's or the taps, because I just cannot see myself with or in any of these waters, also bent on being foreign and far above the competition with their minimalistic labels and text-based graphics and umlauts on words that aren't even German or Danish or Swedish or whoever else uses umlauts. Outside, sipping red, if I'm the first place on that I can see myself in the drainage ditch. The drainage ditch between the parking lot and the highway, a mucky rut dug deep in the earth like an infected cut, pus laden with unidentifiable liquids and jammed at what end by what appears to be a tree branch and a diaper clogged into the too small pipe, an oversized zit on a forehead edged with grass, coughing rotten shades of mucus and dying, suffocating under Hershey bar wrappers and Pepsi cans, leaked oil forming sheeny rainbow scales in a few places on the surface, making the whole dang thing look like some sort of mangy malaria catfish hybrid monster spewed out from a poison well, or like the spoiled meat boiling out of roadkill in the summer before the buzzards get there yet. Gross. Somehow these waters still reflect my face clear enough to see, and the fading light of this May night, all summer this ditch will lie parched and cracked, looking like the evaporated portions of the Aral Sea, a close-up of a stale French fry, Job's face before the healing. This ditch doesn't have the purest water on earth, or a fancy label, or any cichlids or Hovsgol grayling to protect, or any world records based on some obscure statistic you didn't even know was widely measured and recorded. But when the September rains come in quiet winds and slate clouds, like a shipment of vaccines pulling into port at the last possible second, or like the feeling a Gatorade or the store brand or even the tap on your lips, it will be ready to do what the builder dug it for, like it's done since he finished the store, carrying gallons upon gallons upon gallons night and day back to the Potomac. It does more work around here than anybody, and this is leaning to it. Entire generations have yet to see the missing Raphaels and Da Vinci's, Donatello's, Joshua, or Van Eyck's, the just judges from the Ghent Altarpiece. Over 99.9% of the human race will never ever hear a single movement of Bach, Beethoven, or Brahms. Harry Potter is published in around 70 distinct languages, Shakespeare in approximately 80, the Bible in more than 2,000. There are more than 6,000 languages. Mongolians will probably never hear an out-of-work architect fill a German cathedral with only his voice and the Indian rosewood guitar he played like the Susquehanna rolling silt in Pennsylvania rain into the Chesapeake, and he will probably never see them throat sing, the plains behind them harmonizing in the deep tones only vast places sing when their mouths stretch beyond the curvature of the earth. My mother never saw the tiny tiles writing quotes on the Connecticut sidewalk I found one summer, and few will ever feel the way my spine curled in revelation when I felt what they meant. Have faith. Keep singing. I know a retired farmer who still works a few acres solely by hand in nature just because he likes the feeling of the earth. I once asked him how he ever found the strength to begin looking each spring at his unplowed field stretching like a small ocean, and knowing that a drought, a flood, a fire, or 1,000 other uncontrollable occurrences could destroy all of his work in an instant, like they had before, and leave the field as if he had never lived. Sending the seeds of a dandelion into the wind with a practice kick, his leather boots long, worn smooth, he replied, "You lean into the plow." Thank you.